All right, got a lot of folks here tonight, and I know this is a little bit short notice, and this is a very important workshop, and I appreciate everybody that came today. I will call today's workshop to order. It's November 12th at 4 p.m. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I just want to remind everyone this is a workshop. We typically don't make decisions at workshops, but this is to share and exchange some critical information about funding. First up on the agenda is amendment and approval of the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda. I'll second that.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Yes.
And yes, motion passes 3-0. Now on to the discussion item, which is the discussion of a proposed service district. Chris?
Well, here we are. As I spoke about last week in the presentation, we wanted to have a formal discussion about forming a service district for the Sheriff's Department. Do you want me to go ahead and read a lot of this?
Yeah,
in the record?
however you want to proceed, then we can ask some questions. Sure. and tell you what we've learned.
So what we're requesting is the formation of a service district for Curry County law enforcement. We, the people of Curry County, request this Board of Commissioners to enter into an order declaring its intention to initiate the formation of a service district for law enforcement services organized under ORS Chapter 451 and forthwith conduct the first of 2 public hearings to solicit comments on the proposal for formation effective upon approval of the voters of Curry County, Oregon at the May 25 election. Voters of the proposed Curry County Law Enforcement Service District will be asked to establish a permanent tax rate limit to fund the district's operations as authorized by ORS 451.547. The purpose of the district is to provide and sustain an adequate level of the sheriff's law enforcement services throughout Curry County. The name of the service district will be Curry County Law Enforcement Service District. The jurisdiction and legal authority for the formation of the district will be held by the Board of Commissioners and all applicable law in the ORS. The boundaries for the proposed service district will include all of the territory in Curry County. The Curry County Law Enforcement Service District will ask for $1.12 per thousand of assessed value of property. That tax rate would start at the earliest date of the new fiscal budget year immediately following the election held in May of 2025. This will bring in an estimated $4.2 million to the district annually. What this will afford for the district is 8 patrol deputies, 1 civil deputy, 1 administrative assistant, 2 sergeants, 1 lieutenant, and our sheriff. What will afford for dispatch will be 1 lieutenant, 1 sergeant, and 8 dispatch workers. This will help rebuild the confidence of the citizens of Curry County, as well as help to protect all first responders countywide, as having more road deputies ensures a measure of safety for calls where responders are at risk. We know that past ballot measures that tax the citizens of Curry County haven't been well received. But we believe that if the work is put in and we have the promise of this Board of Commissioners to help us see it through, this has a strong chance of being successful. So from you, we are asking 2 things. We request the Board of County Commissioners form a Curry County Law Enforcement District by board action pursuant to Oregon revised statutes. And then we ask this board to support the funding measure. As you know, this won't come close to funding the Sheriff's Department and jail, so we are also asking for your promise not to remove general fund dollars from the Sheriff's budget if this succeeds. that would be greatly counterproductive to the promises we all made to fund the Sheriff's Department and to protect the public. Sincerely. So this is basically the crux of what we're going to ask for here today. We are going to emulate the Josephine County law enforcement district that just passed this past election, and we have had meetings with Josephine County Sheriff, and he has basically given his permission to cut and paste their work from that. We would, of course, I think we would need to also have the one moment. We'd have to have all of the gosh, what's the word?
The measure itself,
Not the measure, but
the feasibility study.
the feasibility study.
We have
That's
that.
the one. Okay.
And it's also spelled out in law, and I think ORS 198 for the criteria for a feasibility study. I've had a lot of experience with feasibility studies, and that I've built a lot of construction projects where we had to present those prior to proceeding. So that's going to be a very easy thing to do.
Is that gonna like talk about how this district melds with the current sheriff's department? I mean, I was reading some of those laws as well, there's language referring to like a master plan for the district. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, the first thing we need to make clear is this is not a special, this is not a this is a service district, not a special
No, I was
district.
reading about service.
Yeah, and I see from this letter that we have here, there's some misunderstanding about that. And the bureaucracy and the board that would be required for a service district isn't there, that is for a special district. So it's not, you could have an advisory board, I believe, but not a required board for the service
I
district.
think the mayor was he was asking what the difference is between an advisory board for the service district as opposed to the advisory board that was proposed in the original levy. Remember, there was gonna be an advisory board for that
7%.
as well.
Are you talking about the levy last May?
Yeah.
Well, I think that it could be the same.
Pretty identical.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think-
what I think he was talking about.
Yeah, I don't think there's, I think this is, we came here mainly, we met with the sheriff. Has anybody else spoken to the sheriff and Josephine?
I have.
Okay.
I spoke with the undersheriff as well.
Yes, and we've had meetings with them, and like what Chris said, we're trying to emulate that. We have, the ballot measure and everything that they did there. And when I came into this process for the levy, I was very negative about it. I did not feel like you had a chance. And then after sitting down with the sheriff there, I found out what they did that was very important and very different than what we did. And they did the election in an off-field election. They did it when not in a presidential election like a primary like we did here. And because of that, there is demographics that increases your possibilities of passing levies like this. And I think that's pretty well understood. So sitting down with him and looking at the demographics of the county, and I see that, there is an argument that, well, what about the people that live in the cities? And what do they benefit out of having sheriff patrols in the rural areas? Well, first of all, I think we all should agree that we don't have sufficient sheriff patrols in the rural areas today. I think we all agree on that. Does anybody disagree with that? And how do we finance having sufficient patrols? We can look long-term. We can look at getting the ability to use our natural resources again. I'm all for that. And I think that should be something this commission is doing right now to get that ball rolling. But in the meantime, how long does that take? Does it take a year, 2 years, 3 years? Could it get tied up in court? We need deputies now. Now, this is something we could do by next May, which would be, a quicker way to go about it, you can, and I noticed a mention of a sunset, there could be a sunset.
We talked about a sunset of a 7-year sunset.
And so how do we finance those deputies? For the people, they say the people in the urban areas have no reason to support the deputy patrol. Well, I think the people in the urban areas go into the county, they recreate, they're part of this county. You know, not having deputy patrols sufficiently in the rural areas also could harm people that live in the rural area, in the urban areas. So just because you live in an urban area, and half the county, I believe, as you mentioned, Jay, is not in incorporated areas at the last meeting. Was that about correct?
Yeah, it's really close to half.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's different than the other rural areas. Generally, sheriffs have a lot of miles to cover, but it's not as many people. In our county, it's a little peculiar because we have the largest unincorporated area in the state of Oregon, in Harbor.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really close to 50-50. Obviously, there's much more land mass in the county, but
Getting back to why cities would benefit from that as well, as the sheriff's department works with, all cities and sheriff's county work together as one unit. I mean, sheriff's deputies back up city calls and cities back up sheriffs as well. So I think that's an easy explanation to have more coverage, even in cities, from the sheriff's department if they're needed. And that's just a radio call away.
When I was talking to the Josephine County Sheriff today, he did express some concern about this plan, and he said that he had mentioned to our sheriff that the thing that the metropolitan areas benefit most directly from is the jail, and what he said that perhaps using a model like Deschutes County did, where they did a separate levy for the jail to fund that, and then that got that taken care of and off the table, and then they were able to do another one for patrol. And of everybody in the room, he's the guy that's had a successful
the other thing about
operation.
Josephine County is they excluded the cities from their service district funding.
They did.
Grants pass.
Their demographics are a lot different than ours. They have a lot more people that live in their rural areas to finance the sheriff. For this levy, this is bare bones. There is no luxury items that are being proposed. We're talking about putting boots on the ground in the county. And we've cut it as hard as, one of the biggest criticisms originally last May was it was too much. Another one was that I heard was because of the transparency, people were questioning whether we vote for this levy and money goes into the general fund for other things. And if you put this money into law enforcement, then whatever's going into law enforcement will be used for other things. And that's not what we're proposing here. We're not proposing to defund anything else that we're doing with the general fund, and that includes the jail. What we're asking for is those deputies in the rural areas. We need it, and everybody knows it. And how do we do that? And I'm all for any solution anybody comes up with that the people will support. This, I think we have a chance. If we run a campaign correctly, we don't miss deadlines. And we can educate everybody for what we're speaking of. And I really feel like the people in the urban area, I just don't believe that here in Curry County, that's just because you live in a city and you live in a rural area, that we're not all part of this county. And we're all members of the county. We all should want to have sufficient law enforcement all over the county, no matter where we live.
So can I just ask for clarity? So you want the standard or the same general fund support that you currently have in addition to this special district number?
Yes.
So you would want the $1.3 million that was given to civil and patrol to be the same?
Yes.
Well, what this will do is this will bring it back to the original ask from the sheriff's department. If we can get this through, it'll be basically the original what they asked.
Jeremy's shaking his head, so.
So can I,
So we're still not bringing it back. We're getting to a bare bones, right?
Right.
Jeremy?
I'm not talking about the original sheriff, I'm talking about what they originally asked for.
Yeah.
So what the 1.2 or the $1.12 will ask for is to replace the general fund dollars that are given to criminal and civil, communications, search and rescue, and marine. Those will all go back into the general fund.
And dispatch?
That's communications.
Oh.
Yeah. So those will go back to the general fund to be reallocated as the board sees fit.
And then the road funds,
Yeah, the road funds are part of it.
so this was replacing
This is replacing.
the
that.
general fund obligation to those areas, because I was gonna say, if it doesn't replace,
Yeah.
if this is 4.3 additional to what is already there, it's only a net additional 7 people from what we currently have in dispatch and patrol. So that would be a,
And what it also does is it doesn't take into account the fees that we collect, because those are hit and miss. We can budget for them, but if they don't show up, they don't show up. So this is the total ask for the division, and then if we get fees on top of it, we can allocate.
so I did a little bit of, if you're okay. I
Please.
did a little bit of research and reached out to Special Districts of Oregon, which is the one that oversees service districts and has their checks and balance processes, and got a few questions answered that I had. One of the biggest ones is that the district would be completely responsible for their own personnel administration, financial administration, requirements governing areas of public records, public meetings, and civil rights. You would have your own audit, you would have your own financials, you would have your own payroll, and that is a significant cost. So looking at Lieutenant Crone's numbers, that's not figuring in finance, audit, payroll personnel.
this is a
and-
separate budget.
And it's not figuring in, special districts also said to me that, we would-
talking about a service district?
No.
Or
so special districts oversees the service districts for the county.
Organization.
So,
It's this little document.
yep, that says service districts, county service districts.
Do you have one of those, Joe?
No, I spoke with a lady, I think Tanya Grash, with the Special District Association.
You want me to go make
So-
copies real quick of that page you have?
Do you want
It's just,
to-
it's like a,
Reveal, make some copies.
it's
Jay.
just like a bullet sheet of things.
I have a relationship with them.
Yeah, I have an email from her spelling out how to form the district and
So-
some of the criteria.
Let me finish really quickly. I did get an email back from them. So yes, you would have to, get your own, she said generally, yes, you will have to have your own payroll, financial administration, fiscal system, et cetera. Assets, you guys don't have the assets. The assets are a part of the county. So there's ORSs. ORS 451-140 goes into the powers of the court and giving assets. Also, she talks about in here that we do have to have an advisory board or advisory commission, no limit or no less than 5 members. So we should do that. Also, we need to, being that the county has union contracts, this service district would have to have a union contract, and it's not just a transition of personnel over, that we would have to hire a local government attorney to do the personnel matters of transitioning over. So my concern is that this is going to be an enormous cost outside of that $4.3 million. And where's that cost going to be covered by?
Right. I think that's a very good question.
Joe,
Jeremy, would you like to address that?
well, real quick, I just want to, so I think what made sense is they basically
thank you.
said, if you form a service district, it operates just basically like your 4-H district.
Yes.
Their own independent advisory board, just the budget after they've adopted comes to us to be
For approval.
adopted.
Exactly.
But you say enormous, what is that number? You must have some guesstimate.
Well,
of
an
the
audit
number.
itself is anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000 annually.
Okay, so you're talking
And
50
then,
to 100,000.
just for an audit. And then you're gonna have to have a financial system. Those aren't cheap and those have to be upgraded and
Correct.
supported. Then you're gonna have a financial person, then you have to have a payroll person. So,
What we're trying to do is do something that is cheap as possible. We're not gonna go the direction of last May for
Correct.
$2 and, so, I mean, $100,000, you know, we can build that in, that may add another 10 cents or something, I'm not really
So-
sure.
but you also have to keep in mind, and I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, I just don't want
That's
this
what
to
we
be
need.
upside down in 2-3
Need
years,
devil's
right?
advocate.
So we also have, budget assumptions that you have to take into consideration. So the budget assumptions, take into consideration your COLAs. If you have a collective bargaining agreement with a union, that's gonna take into any additional increases, step increases. Health insurance goes up annually. Every odd year, PERS goes up.
Nothing
Everything just, they tack it on you left and right. So, based on Lieutenant Crone's numbers here, every penny is expended from day one. So then what happens in year 2, year 3, when things are going up? And I know that taxes can go up 3%, but is that sufficient enough to be able to cover
Well,
these
we have
expenses?
a choice.
Okay,
We either cut what we're planning to do, or add more into it, or do a combination of both.
okay.
So before we start talking about cutting, so in the numbers that we have, we did add in there for the various IGSs that the sheriff's office currently has in the county, including the indirect admin services cost. So that was our assumption, was that because it's still, yes, it's a service district, but we're all still under the county umbrella, that we would be able to enter into IGSs for these divisions with the county at the current rate, because it's already in place. So we're.
And that would be up to commissioners?
Right.
But there would be legitimate costs that would be significant. So
Right.
just so you know, on the finance side, that's a whole lot more for my team that's down people as well, to be
Right.
administering 2 separate budgets, 2 separate finances. There's things to look at.
Why isn't this a levy? Because it sounds like what you're describing, that what you want is a levy, and the levy is gonna be minus all that extra cost. And it just makes sense. If there was a levy that was a reasonable number.
Politically, the problem with the levy is if it's not committed to law enforcement,
Why, can
you
we
got a
commit it?
problem.
But it can be committed to law
Yeah,
enforcement.
as far as I don't see a difference between a levy and a special, a service district. I mean, to me, the service
get it.
district is a levy.
I think it comes down to, a lot of it comes down to the administration of it. It's like you said a while ago, the reason you thought maybe theirs went through was because of the jail. That's really it's semantics on, do you put this through as a jail, special district, service district, or do you put it through for deputies? It's really
Is
semantics.
money to the
have to.
sheriff's department,
We
right?
have to fund the jail, under the state, we have to fund the jail.
Right.
So,
If we have one.
if we have one, which we do. So, this isn't gonna fix everything to do with the sheriff's department. What this is going to do is take pressure off of the board on budget season. You're gonna know you have this, and we're still gonna have fills that we have to take out of the general fund to push through to make this work. But
Right, and-
it's gonna take a lot of pressure.
And it's bridging the gap, for sure. But we're asking the people to pay a lot of money, $1.12, right? And we already know how they felt about the $2 range.
Well, I
So-
voted against the $2 one, and I'm championing, I will
So-
put my own money into advertisement for this one.
So,
Same way, I haven't convinced my wife yet to vote for this. I hope she's listening and changes her mind. I'm
The-
working on it.
the concern I have sitting here is, okay, we ask the people to do this, it passes in May, goes through, $1.12, we get the money coming in. What happens in 3 years?
We wouldn't be able to stay afloat based on these numbers.
So
That's-
Based on,
the personnel numbers, for context, they're at the road deputy and communications deputy 3. Those are deputies with experience, with advanced certificates. The chances of us hiring 8 deputies with advanced certificates is next to none. So there is some extra money in that. or we're planning to hire at that higher rate, knowing we're not going to.
Sure.
So that's where some of that extra.
And I did some numbers myself, taking half high level and half entry level. So we've had the medium. And went through and figured out with assumptions, 1, 2, 3 years of assumptions. And just in personnel service costs alone, by year 3, you'd be at $3.5 million. So the M&S that we have for the other ones would be, we wouldn't be able to fulfill those M&S. And that was not taking into consideration SARS or Marine. I wasn't aware of those being in those as well.
And that's accounting that we hired every position in year 1.
Okay.
I think we all are sensible human beings here. And I don't claim to have finance degrees. I claim to have common sense, and I have worked a lot of my life in finance. And unless we find a fix for rural counties like Curry County, we are pushing a huge stone up a hill, up a mountain, not a hill. This county cannot survive, I don't believe, another 5 or 6 years with the way the financial structure of the state of Oregon is and the amount of resources that rural county like Curry gathers. Something's got to change. We either get some funding through timber, we get some miracle comes in Curry County and happens.
Right.
This is, like you said, this is a bridge. And I, as I've told you before, I will do all I can do to help with whatever we got to do. You have me at your table, but this isn't going to fix Curry County.
No, it's a Band-Aid.
Just a Band-Aid to stop the bleeding for another year or two. Like you said, 3 years and you're going to be right at the wit's
Right,
end with it.
right.
So this is a Band-Aid for about 3 years, and we're all on a clock here, and it's 11:15.
But it puts more deputies on patrol.
Amen. It protects the public as we promised we would do, all we could do to help with that.
And just because it was brought up, for Deschutes County, the reason theirs works the way it does is their 911 is its own special district. So they have their own center, not related to any law enforcement. They did go out for a jail levy. They also had a bond at the same time. And then they also have what's called a rural protection district. So anyone outside of the city, you pay your general sheriff's office tax plus to get law enforcement services. So you're paying for the sheriff's office 4 times compared to
It was only brought up, I just want to say, it was brought up by Sheriff Daniels to me, and that was his recommendation. I'm not making any recommendations, I'm passing that on.
He had a lot.
He's a very helpful guy.
the county. Very helpful.
Right.
I will say, I don't know if this applies or not, but when I put forth, that was a special district, but I don't know if they run under many of the different, I don't know if they run under the same parameters. But one of the parameters was that each taxing district that it was going to affect had to provide a resolution adopting that district within their taxing area. Meaning, we had to get the city to do a separate resolution than we did the county. Because it was going to affect the boundaries on that were city limits plus the county up to Pistol River. And so it required 2 approvals to opt in to the district. So I don't know.
I don't know if this does though. I think because it's county out going in, not city. expanding.
Shelley probably knows the answer.
You do have to have a resolution from each city
Oh, you do? Okay.
approving the fees.
But you don't have to if it's a levy.
I reckon we're starting here and we're going there next.
You don't
But
have
the
to.
point is, do we want more deputy patrols? And how do we do them? Right, and we need more money. So this is an avenue, it isn't perfect.
So here's another plan I have. So tomorrow we'll be attending a workshop with the people from Apache County.
Veritas.
Veritas, I may be saying it wrong. And there'll be, Coos County will be there. There's a bunch of people coming for this topic, which is basically how to get that timber money back, right, and how to start that process and how to streamline it as best we can. One of the things that we have to do is we have to modify our comprehensive plan to do that. So then the question is, if we're going to be working in that direction and modifying that comprehensive plan, then how would this fit into that comprehensive plan, and would this impact moving that forward through that comprehensive plan? Does that make sense?
That would be a negative impact.
I don't know. That's definitely a question that we will have for them tomorrow. But that's a big part of moving this forward. And I'll also say, and Keena found this out, in Utah, right? In Utah, the whole state is trying to do what we're doing tomorrow.
They filed it.
So it's,
Strong if you get 3 or 4 counties, I think Barrett does.
there's
A bunch of counties.
there's a lot of momentum and forward progress with this, and it's a great opportunity for us. And we definitely have the right people in place to make this happen. But it's really important that we follow all those steps. And so, one of the questions I'll have for them tomorrow is how something like this would mesh or fit in with that comprehensive plan language that we need to move that forward. Because moving that forward, I think that is the future for sure.
I agree totally, but I don't know how long that's gonna take. We have deputies in May after this passes, and we know that. And we will be able to put more on patrols by adding more money. And whatever the problems are, if there's other costs that we have not realized, then we won't be able to put as many as we want, but more is needed. And the political question is, what will people support?
Sure.
I think we realize $2, to go for the whole wall of wax, that's not gonna fly. But, this is cut down, and, if we could cut it any less, we would, but I don't think we can. And get a minimal amount of, deputies out. So I think there's a lot of questions with the, resources. I don't see how this would be negative. If we have to go to the incorporated areas and advocate for more deputies, I can't imagine anybody in this county who supports having law enforcement for the whole county to be against having sufficient deputy patrols in the rural areas. I just don't understand how anybody could feel
No,
that way.
I think everybody's for that, Joe. I just don't think they want to pay for it.
Well, how much, I think, is a question.
Right. I mean, that's obviously that's the.
Yeah, with the cities, it's a little different ballgame because, like, some already have a dispatch center, some already pay into this dispatch center outside of their already 59 cents on the thousand. And, convincing them that $1.12 on if it's not permanent, whatever, for services that are going to be hard to describe that they're going to be receiving directly.
The one thing that the cities don't pay into is budget. We do
Well,
not
they
charge.
pay the same 59 cents on the thousand as everybody else.
We get 6 cents of that 59 cents, the county gets. So.
No,
No,
the
No,
county
that's-
gets 59 cents. We get
I'm sorry.
6% of the total
6%,
tax.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know there's a lot of
So-
people that fish in the city that don't want their cars broken into while they're fishing, that would like to have sheriff deputies available if there are problems when they are. And the political aspect of it, you don't need everybody in every city to vote for this. If the people in the rural areas vote for it and turn out, it will pass. And especially in an off-year election, that's a political fact. So getting the approval of the cities, if the cities would block the rural areas from having deputy patrols, I think that would be a real negative aspect for the people that lead the cities in this community, and I don't see that happening.
I think,
Imagine that.
I think that, like, one of the questions that the mayor of Brookings asked here, why would the citizens of the city of Brookings and other cities pay these additional forever taxes for services they currently have, such as dispatch? So, right, this proposal, I could be wrong on my math, but I think we're asking the city of Brookings to pay annually about $700,000 to fund our dispatch, and they already have dispatch. And I think that's a, if we're talking about funding the jail, I think that's an easier conversation to have, because there's only one jail. And that's what I think, if we're really being honest about getting something before the voters that's gonna pass and that's gonna resonate with the voters, I think we need to be careful about how we do it. I think, we had questions about dispatch in general during the budget process. Right now, Gold Beach, basically, the city of Gold Beach is paying, I want to say, something like $17,000 a year for the admin. They're paying, city of Gold Beach is paying that in addition to what the taxpayers of Gold Beach are paying as their 59 cents, right? But, I mean, it's a complicated issue to decide how much, there's a number somewhere between 17,000, and I think under this program, it would be, I want to say, Gold Beach should be on the hook for, what is it, 40,000?
77.
77,000. So somewhere between, you see, there's a number in there. What we were charging is perhaps too low. And when I asked Captain McDonald about how they arrived at those numbers, he said, it's just a handshake deal and we don't want to get into it. Well, that's kind of the issue that brought people's attention and said, how are we figuring what the charges are? That's the kind of transparency that I'm looking for. I'd like to know what a number is that's fair for Port Orford and for Gold Beach to be paying for dispatch. And then we also have all these other little districts that are benefit from the dispatch that the county does. And they can't pay. Okay, I get it, because they all have very limited tax bases as well. But is there a way, we should have that discussion so we can figure out what is a fair, because right now, county dispatch is providing a big benefit for a very little amount of money. And that's really kind of what has gotten us to where we are today.
I think one of the conversations that probably we can at least leave here with a better understanding of is the vehicle in which to get this done. Because, yes, if you have to go through and you got to get resolutions from the cities in terms of getting on board with them, and then before it comes to here and then all of the different the feasibility studies and boundary lines, they have to be drawn up for each one. There may feasibly there may not be just enough time to get it done.
Yeah, you're already running out of time. February 10th is when everything has to be done. So you have to have all your hearings, final
And
order,
and according
map,
to,
your feasibility.
Yes, and I'm familiar with the law, and how it spells out the criteria. Which law was it where it was required for the approval of every district?
It'd be the cities, not every district.
Just the
One-
incorporated
Just the
areas?
cities.
Yeah, 198.
But the vehicle, if a levy bypasses all of that and essentially provides a bridge to maybe a more sustainable long-term funding solution, I
Cost
think
less.
we get back in.
But it also has a little bit broader
I'm not,
appeal.
my door isn't closed to a levy.
Yeah, I mean.
No,
it-
but I'm saying that might be a more streamlined.
But how do we assure the voters that it will go towards law enforcement with a levy, and it just doesn't go into the general fund?
How do you
How do we do
assure
that?
how do you assure the voters that this district money won't go into general fund?
Can only be
It
used
could,
for law.
it's
Oh,
restricted.
so it's just like the levy. That's what the levy said. So
Okay.
if people are not going to believe, if they're not going to believe the written word, then there's nothing we can do.
Because it was written in there, will be restricted to, right?
I
And
think
so,
Sheriff Ford prefers a levy too. I'm not sure on that, but I think.
Yeah, I think a levy would, if it gets us more deputies,
We just want to, yes.
Well,
if I may.
I mean, we,
for it.
Way
when,
quicker.
when we looked at creating the last levy that we proposed, we also looked at special districts, service districts, and all of those things. And we looked at the cost associated with each one, and the levy was much less problematic, and it cost less. It was financially more effective.
We have plenty of time.
198, 720.
And you're gonna be able to resonate with,
720 is the law that you asked for.
you're gonna be able to resonate with people that are concerned about the jail, for example. That's a real, you know, that's a thing that every one of these cities really depends on.
What's the timeline on the levy, Shelley? Is it February again? So, same thing?
It's an easier road to get there.
Yeah, because you don't have to have all your hearings, it's just the SEL that the board.
Georgie, you're part of their committee, so do you want to step up to the podium and speak?
I didn't know if I could ask, I just had a question.
If you don't mind stepping up to the podium so that people can hear you and Natasha doesn't yell at me later.
I just had a quick question. If we went with Ted's suggestion of a levy, do we then need to be looking at a cost again of additional admin and in
No.
addition?
No, that's totally different.
because it's all in the same budget.
Be business as
You don't have to
usual.
create two different budgets.
So we're looking specifically at just, I mean, if we go with the $1.12, it will go ahead and serve the purpose which has been brought up for this, but we don't have the additional
Correct.
expenses.
And we don't have to enter into like leasing agreements and IGAs with this separate entity that's been created to provide them with the cars that we already have. And all of that stuff you have to do when you're dealing with a standalone organization like that.
So here's a good example. So the last levy we proposed was what was it, Jay? 223. So and I might be wrong on this number, but if we would have asked for the same amount of money under a levy, it would have been closer to $3.
Under service district. you mean.
Under a
Service district.
No, it was that was a special district, which is very similar in
Same.
nature. The only difference is that you have a board instead of an advisory board, an actual board. But it was 290.
290, there you go.
290 if you did it that way.
And if we did it with the levy, we could, as was proposed under the last levy, let the people know that there would be not a board.
Advisory committee or, yeah, board, just like we had in the last one.
Okay.
In fact, I would prefer that. I would only support if we had independent
Because the
people.
advisory committee can hold future boards accountable to ensure that that money is going where it is. And if it doesn't, then there's a horn that's sound by that advisory committee letting the public know that it's not what was agreed upon when this thing was
Okay.
passed.
Okay, thank you. I guess the last thing is just to mention relative to dispatch. What I understand from law enforcement in Curry County is they want both the county and the city of Brookings to retain their dispatch services. They want a redundant system so that if one is down, there's another one that's available.
Which was
Thank
proven
you.
during the cyber attack, because we wouldn't have had dispatch services if everything wasn't able to be transferred over to Brookings during that time.
All right, thank you for your time.
So under ORS 451, there's a lot of steps that have to take place, such as the master plan, and it talks about a master plan for development of service facilities, which means your service district, and there's different steps that have to take place. Part of it is comprehensive plans with the effective cities, which is similar to what Shelley's talking about. Yep. And then after master plan, there has to be a conformity to the master plan, where then that approved master plan then goes to the Board of Commissioners, which it says county court then reviews it, which is the Board of Commissioners. So there's, we're almost putting the cart in front of the horse with this process, because I don't think we've got the commissioners can't say yay at this point because we don't have that master plan. We don't have the buy-ins from the cities. So
So that did say,
we're behind the 8 ball.
that did say county court,
County
which
court.
is us.
Yep.
Okay.
Says the county court may enforce such plan by requiring the plan for the installation of operations of service facilities under county jurisdiction outside of the boundaries of or city area. And it says operations shall conform to the master plan. And the county court is who oversees that.
That's why the just the straight levy is way simpler and we meet the deadline.
Absolutely.
And we're creating a lot of obstacles for everybody, because that's what I was talking about. We're talking about a feasibility study. You know, you've done a lot of them. I've read a lot of them, and a lot of them are BS. And so,
Pretty much what it
well,
is.
yeah, I know, and that's what we can't do, because we actually need to have an overview of how everything melds together and works together. You know, that's why it just is creating a bunch of stuff
That's
that.
a separate issue than a feasibility.
I know, but with a levy, we don't need that. We can.
And I'm not against a levy. I'm not hearing that the board is against a levy.
You guys would basically be doing what we did at almost half the cost.
Right. And no, one other big difference, not a presidential primary.
Yep.
Correct?
One question on
very
the
big
delegation of the
difference.
levies, that's proven.
No, I agree. I agree with you on that. In fact, that's the feedback we got. We got that feedback last time, but we didn't have a choice.
Right.
I
I don't think we have a choice now if we want to have deputy patrols. And we all do. So, and you know, what you're doing tomorrow on the natural resources, have they appointed somebody to Interior?
Not yet.
That's gonna be important.
I have an AOC meeting on Friday, because they're preparing for the appointment so that we can.
But remember, there's gonna be, I used to be a lobbyist for the petroleum industry, there's gonna be priorities, and drill baby drill right now is the priority.
Yeah.
But it'll be very important who they do appoint and what their background is, along with who ends up in the Forest Service and also the BLM. And I think we'll find that everybody's working with us, but that's gonna possibly take years. A levy in May, more money for their sheriff deputies.
Well, and that's
Need
it.
that.
And that is exactly what we posed to the people with last levy was we told them we would be working towards regaining our ability to reap the financial benefits from our natural resources, but we needed this in the meantime to get us 24/7 coverage. So Patrick, tomorrow, remind me, we need to ask the questions about how a levy or a special district would work with the potential changes to the comprehensive plan.
The other thing I would consider is if we do a levy, I think you can do a levy for less by keeping the allocated dollars for dispatch in place, and with the so just to put it in perspective.
I like that.
Okay.
You're saying, you know, for less, I
I
like.
want to put it in perspective, okay? In the 23-24 budget, right? The 23-24 budget, Sheriff Patrol was budgeted 3.4 million. 3.1 coming out of the road funds, the other 300,000 was coming out for civil, etc. So 3.4 million, and at 3.4 million, we had 18 deputies, 3 sergeants, lieutenant, captain, sheriff, admin assistant, and civil, right?
When was that?
That was the 23-24 budget. So with this scaled down version, it's not even half at 3.4, right? So if we do some collaborative looking at what it could look like, it could look a lot more feasible to get to the outcome that we're shooting for here with the numbers being requested.
I think what concerns me the most is delaying and not proceeding, putting things in motion, whether it's a levy or a special service district. And the levy sounds like something that we really should consider. And I have no problem with it, but, you know, I don't want to wait until February to start educating the public and putting a campaign together to win this in May. So what would be very important is to get a commitment from you guys, ASAP, that we are going to proceed with the levy and work out the numbers that you've discussed. If we can find that, I think that was part of the problem. I mean, the biggest problem is it was too much. And then the next thing was it was a wrong election. So I think we have things going for us in May, but we still need to run a very intelligent, well-organized campaign. We need to start that as soon as possible, educating the community.
So if we go to this training/workshop tomorrow, and we find out that that would impact the language we need in the comprehensive plan by having either a levy or a special district, and we're told that's not going to work, then do we pursue the natural resources and follow that path? But then we would not be able to commit to the levy or the special district now.
Well,
See, I don't know the answer to that question yet.
I don't see where a levy would, I don't see how that would interfere with going after the natural resources. That just doesn't.
I don't either.
I don't either.
I don't see.
I don't either, but if I say, yeah, I'm all in, and then tomorrow I get there and they say, no, you've got to have the language in the comprehensive plan to move this forward, and that's not going to work, then I'm,
But if there is not a problem in going after the natural resources and also having a levy to finance more deputy patrols, I'm hoping that at the next Board of Commissioners, we get a commitment to that levy. We can work the numbers out between now and then.
right.
Talk to the sheriff. And what do you think, Jeremy?
I think the levy is a good idea if that's around 4 months ago. My only concern is we have to start acting now because we're going into a fiscal budget year where we're not going to have enough money to fund anything. So if we keep pushing it off, hoping we're going to wait and see something, or we're going to wait to do something, we're going to run out of time, or we're going to run out of money. And it's going to get hard.
We got to get all of our deadlines from Shelley as soon as possible.
Well, if
We're
you're
making
going-
everything.
If you're just going the levy route, it just takes a order from the Board of Commissioners and the SEL 805 be signed.
Notice in the newspapers.
That's what the SEL does,
Yep.
no later than February 10th. And then I've heard a couple times it would be the only question on the ballot. We don't know that yet.
Right,
Any
yeah.
district could put something on there, or a
Yeah.
city, or,
Looking at the history and off-year elections, a lot of times you do have special districts, but it's not the whole county. I think the odds are it might be the only complete, what is it, 27 precincts? And the only thing for all 27 precincts. That doesn't happen that often in off-year elections.
and then keep in mind too, there won't be a voter's pamphlet, because the state puts the voter pamphlet in. And this is not a statewide election, so there wouldn't be a voter's pamphlet.
That's okay, because Joe's gonna send everybody a postcard.
I was just going to say,
More
your
than
own
one.
mailing. And, to get the buy-in of the county residents, we can absolutely create a levy fund that will show the money coming into that fund and then show that money being allocated out to whatever sheriff's fund that is needing it.
Yeah.
And so it'd be very transparent of ins and outs, and we can do that and not have it in general fund and not have it in sheriff's. It'll be its very own standalone. And it can just be transferred out.
Kylie, we haven't heard from you yet. Does a special service district, does it add any costs to your shop? And your thoughts on this?
It's the same regardless if you did a levy. And on my original emails with Jeremy said that when he said he wanted to do a special service district, sorry. I'm so sorry, I just said that. I said, okay, I said, first you gotta come up with like your meets and bounds and who's gonna be in this district. And when he said it's gonna be countywide, I asked, why are we going that direction when we could just do a levy? And I really have an answer for that. So, and here we are, so.
Okay.
Same amount of work, actually it's probably a little harder to set up a service district, but we haven't done anything in the new system, so
Okay.
it'll be an experience moving forward.
I think a lot of the reason, for clarity in the room, a lot of the reason we went with the service district to present to you was the sheriff in Josephine County coming and talking to us about it, that that's what he was successful at finally getting through, so,
Well, I really think that as far as time constraints go, because you guys aren't, you guys are great guys, but we need to get the commitment of this group that was pushing this and the sheriff, so we know that we are going forward with that, with the idea of the levy or whatever. So the quicker we get that, then the quicker we can schedule a special meeting.
tomorrow morning.
Yeah, then we can schedule a special meeting and start moving forward. I think that's, because we want to get our numbers nailed down, and we do want to be collaborative about what this is gonna, how, there's lots of issues, and as Jay said, that's some good stuff. If we can, plow back, make sure that we're keeping the money that's already committed for these areas, and then the other thing that you want to do when you're having a levy like this is going to give you, as long as it's dedicated for law enforcement, for the sheriff's department, we don't know what's going to happen. The reality is that something terrible might happen at the jail, or some weird thing happen that we might have to redirect these funds within the law enforcement arena, so that we can stay in business. But you want to have the flexibility, and that's why tying it all to patrol, I don't think is a good idea. I think that having patrol out there, because it is the only thing that's fundable by road fund dollars. So that seems like that's a foolish proposition to separately fund patrol. You want to fund the whole thing generally, and then be able to inject money with road funds to patrol as needed. See what I'm saying?
Well, I guess that would come down to a question of what's the priority? Is it priority the jail, or is it patrol? What comes first?
Right now, with where the funding's going, what's lacking is patrol.
Right,
And that's what we need.
but in the event that there was a catastrophic change, what would the priority be? Would the priority be keeping
It's
it?
mandated for the
Yeah,
jail.
It is.
Well,
And
it's,
the county can get creative, charging fees to the cities for the jail. Other places do it. The only place that becomes an issue with medical, and that's still a county burden.
Correct, but we also have taxpayers that are in the city that are going to say, we already pay for the jail. So there's a political issue with that as well.
I think the important thing with the voters is that I think there's a lot of mistrust of government.
And it didn't start with this board, it's been going around for a long time.
No. I think we just witnessed it, at the change of administrations, that there's a lot of mistrust, and people want things done differently. And very important politically is that it is, clearly stated, understood, transparent law enforcement. And the funds will not be used for anything else, and whatever it takes to do that. And of course,
That's the committee that'll monitor all that.
and we all know there's only one constant in life, and that's change. Things do change, and people have to deal with the change. But we know the direction and the priority, and that's what we're here talking about today.
So two things important to me are sunset clause and having that board in place. Those are the two things that are most important to me.
Okay, well, the sunset clause, we've already discussed, and everyone was on board with that. 7 to 10 years would be the sunset on it, somewhere in there. So we can come up with a hard one on that. And then having an advisory board would be easy, I think, so. I can have an answer for you tomorrow on the, is it okay to do the levy as well? So we'll have a hard answer on that.
Well, and we'll get answers tomorrow as we go through tomorrow's information about what, if any, impacts this would have. I wouldn't think it would have any, but I don't know. This is all new. It's all new information that we're going to hear, so.
What time is that workshop?
10:30.
10 or 10, is it 10:30 or 10?
10:30?
Patrick?
Tomorrow?
Yeah,
8:30.
8:30.
In the evening or the morning?
So I'll call
got-
you in the afternoon.
I've got 10 on my calendar.
I'll call you tomorrow afternoon, Brad.
Okay.
You're all gonna be late.
Georgia,
Just
you-
running numbers on an alternative to fund, just directly fund what's being asked.
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate everyone taking the meeting and the workshop, and you're moving forward with this. We appreciate it.
I think we got accomplished a lot today, a whole lot. I'm glad you were devil's advocate.
I'm a numbers person, so I
That's
yeah.
his job.
what do you have, Jay?
Well, from kind of just rough math, we could basically, we could achieve almost the same goal, asking 31 cents less. By retaining some funds in dispatch. This would also provide a bit of a buffer, but roughly 31 cents. But I mean, that's just pretty rough math.
Well, we can get that, I mean, that's a good thing to be looking at.
31 cents less than the $1.12.
Yeah.
Numbers and run them.
Yeah, let's run the numbers and get with me. Can you get with me maybe tomorrow afternoon? Okay, good.
I also have a worksheet for Lieutenant Crone, if you'd like to see it, with the assumptions for the next 3 years that, you know, kind of build in what our contract currently looks like. So
81 cents.
I would just ask that this be, that we be clear that this money will be used to hire additional deputies. I know you'd mentioned if something catastrophic happens, we may need the money for something else, but I don't think we're going to pass this unless the citizens feel certain that the reason for this levy is for additional road deputies. Like anything else, it goes into place if down the road there's a catastrophic situation where the money is needed elsewhere. Whoever the board is at that time, and this committee would deal with it at that time. But I don't think it has a chance of passing if we go to the citizens and say, this just goes into a fund for law enforcement and will be used for whatever the need is. I think we have to have it for more deputies.
So I would disagree with you to some extent there, Georgia, in that if you know, we say the money's going to go wherever, nobody's going to vote for that at all, because it could go to any number of social services type things. But I think if the people that live in the cities knew that that money would either go to patrol or to the jail, because the people that live in the cities are mostly concerned about the jail, then the people in the cities may offer more support for it than if it were just to go to patrol. Now, of course, the language that you put in the levy is really important. We learned that from the last levy that we did. So how you craft that or fashion that into your message, I think, is critical. But the feedback that we got from the people who live in the cities were, and it goes back to Mayor Hodges' email, well, what do we get for it, right? And they don't understand that, yes, our deputies back our city police. Our deputies oftentimes cover calls in the city if they're tied up. But they don't understand that. What they do understand is they understand that they need a jail.
I think the way the magic words you mentioned is the wording.
Yes.
And the clarity of it. And the
Correct.
commitment of our elected officials, both the county commissioners and the sheriff.
Mhm.
The priorities we have in this county right now and what we really need. And that's what this money is about. More
Public
patrols.
safety. It's about public safety.
Public safety, but we need more patrols. The rural areas need more patrols. We cannot say that enough because it is very true. And it's not right that they don't have the patrols they need.
Agreed.
So that's why we need more money.
I'm good.
Anybody else? Is there anybody else that wants to make a comment here? Jay, Keno?
No, I'm just, you know, I appreciate the ability to look at this thing objectively. I mean, the goal is public safety. It's not, that's a shared full goal, and I'm glad that everybody in the room was willing to look at what we can find as the best road in reaching the goal, not necessarily being stuck to certain ideas all the way through that may not get us to that level. So I just appreciate that level of working together.
I had a guy once tell me if you left the meeting with everything and you got everything you wanted, it wasn't a very good meeting.
Commissioner-elect Hollinger, you haven't had a chance to speak yet. Do you want an opportunity to talk?
No, just, we'll just keep seeing how it continues to play out and what final idea kind of gets settled on.
Okay. John, anything?
I think it's the right steps. We're taking the right steps moving forward. And you got to have a plan. You got to start somewhere.
All right, so Chris, you guys will get some more info. We'll get some more info. We'll come back to the table. All right.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. So it's 5:07. I'll conclude the workshop.